Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast, Candelore's Barking Beauties, with 5 locations throughout the region, and His Place Coffee Community and more here in Menneson for hosting us.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Candelore, owner of Candelore's Barking Beauties, where our salon is your salon. We have 5 convenient locations, no appointment needed. All breeds welcome. Any size dog. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We have 5 convenient locations: Elizabeth, White Oak, Finleyville, Monongahela, and Irwin. Love to have you visit us.
Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. We have a great show today. This is episode number 10 that we're filming, and we're doing something a little unique. First of all, we have some great guests, John Chamberlain and Rachael Rennebeck. They're Pittsburgh Jagoffs, and of course we mean that in the most endearing version of that word. They started several years ago, Ya Jagoff Media, and they've got a lot of time, decades in fact, in eating, drinking, shopping, living, and being among all the Yinzers here in Pittsburgh and southwestern Pennsylvania. And so they created a Pittsburgh-centric company, not only for marketing, but they also created a podcast, the YaJagoff Podcast, in like 2017, I believe. And the show has actually been named Pittsburgh's Best Podcast by Pittsburgh Magazine. So we're really happy to have them here. Hopefully they can teach us some things. And honestly, I think, no offense to our esteemed guests, but the most exciting part of this for me is that this is our first episode with a co-host. And my brother from another mother, Jack Cadwalader,
and a full generation apart, too. Let's not confuse it.
Yeah, full pretty much a generation. I'm his handsome, intelligent uncle that, you know. But Jack, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And guys, John, Rachael, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Yeah, we appreciate you having us.
We love the use of decades.
Right.
That felt good. You were
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
decades.
yeah. Well, I mean, you
that
guys
means we're
have been-
seasoned.
Right, and well, I appreciate you let us be front on the camera because
Yeah.
they don't see my facelift lines after decades of work.
Well, considering
I didn't even know you did that.
I'm almost 20 years older than both of you, so you know that was coming from a place of love and respect.
I'll take it.
Awesome. So Ya Jagoff, let's jump in and talk about the podcast. Okay. Now, the media company came first, correct?
No.
The podcast came first,
Yep.
and then you morphed into the marketing and the media from that.
Actually, the blog
Wow.
came first.
Yes.
Wow.
The chicken and the egg. You know,
Okay.
the blog came first. I was unemployed as a vice president of marketing from a company that sold out, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand social media. So the blog came first. Started a blog just pointing out people being Jagoffs in Pittsburgh. A bus that didn't pull over to let their thing, you know, the traffic, parking, grocery shopping, whatever. So the blog was kind of like a thing. And then it became a podcast, videos, and then a podcast. And then the podcast became what it is now with Rachael. And then Rachael and I were marketing people, both kind of trying to figure out life, and had a couple clients here and there. I would call her and ask her questions about one of my clients. She might do the same. And then sort of 5 years ago, we partnered officially as Ya Jagoff Media. So it all started from a silly little blog.
But not just any blog. He was one of the first bloggers in Pittsburgh. Because let's face it, Pittsburgh can be very behind the times.
Absolutely.
Admittedly. It's one of those things where if you're a Pittsburgher, you can say it, but someone else better not say it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely
exactly
not.
right. You're exactly right.
So, you know, there were different topical blogs that were happening and bloggers because this was a new thing to Pittsburgh 11 years ago. And John came out and he was, you were undercover essentially, right?
Yeah.
On your first couple blogs. So it's 11 years. And
Excellent.
as he always says, people would find the podcast from the blog. And now
Okay.
it's the reverse. Now we find ourselves talking about the blog post on the podcast because the podcast, thankfully, has gotten so big.
The blog had some traction, and so I contacted a gentleman by the name of Jason Falls, who is based out of Kentucky but has a Pittsburgh connection.
Okay.
And he came to speak about social media in Pittsburgh, and knew he was like a leading guy in it. So I asked him, I said, can you look at this blog and tell me, is this a hobby or is there something that can maybe not make money, but can it be more
Go
than
somewhere,
that?
Grow legs.
And
Yeah.
does it have legs? And so he came back, did this little report, and said you need to start a podcast. And at that point, there was no money being generated by the blog at all. Right. And so I thought, wow, a podcast means even more free time, more money sunk into something. And this doesn't seem like the right thing. But as Rachel said, the podcast, it's now flipped it. People found the podcast through the blog. They now find the blog through the podcast.
Now, were you thinking to yourself, okay, if I'm going to write something like this, because let's be honest, Southwestern PA has an endless resource of Ya Jagoff.
No question.
It is everywhere you go. But
And you want to talk about decades.
Yes. Was it something that refined it, or boom, was it, this is what I'm hitting?
Well, so people irritate me, especially drivers. and I irritate myself.
I think you're very
That was
handsome.
my surprise face.
I think you're handsome, charming. Yeah, exactly.
I hate it when people aren't nice to other people.
Yeah.
And so it would frustrate me. One of the first blogs was sitting behind a bus I was like the fifth car, and the bus kept going along its bus line, but it would not pull over into the curb to pick up its customers. Its customers had to walk out.
Look at the
and
anger.
resulting all of us stacking up behind the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I'm like, there
Really had an impact on you.
there has to be a place
I
where
hope
we
you
can
don't get
post
behind me on the way out of here. This is crazy.
You don't understand.
And so then it got a little bit of legs, and then people started sending pictures in, like, then news stories, dumb criminals and politicians doing weird things. And
Isn't it funny though that a lot of the headlines we pull from are this area? Did you ever think about that?
yeah.
I gotta tell you.
Fayette County.
Thanks,
This is technically.
This is Westmoreland.
Oh,
You're
okay.
Westmoreland. This is
It's not
Fayette.
Westmoreland.
Yeah, because we're right
It's
in
Fayette.
that corner. But,
My proximity is bad.
Yeah, Fayette and Greene County. Yeah.
So
But
funny.
It's
Yeah.
not that big of a blanket, though, guys.
Yeah,
I mean, you
okay.
really are covering a lot with a small blanket.
There are always people doing dumb things,
Yes.
and there's no shortage of.
I'm related to most of them.
But
That's
the other thing was it had to be tasteful, because I
Yes.
was anonymous not for any reason other than just like you. We talked about before we started recording, in that you like when you start to sell insurance, you sell to your friends. And then you think you're successful, and then you're like, oh my God, I have to go out into the deep sea, and who's going to buy from me? So the same thing, I didn't want anybody to know it was me, because I had a fairly decent sized circle of friends, but I didn't want anybody to know it was me, because I didn't want them to go, oh yeah, I like it because it's you. I wanted people to like it because they liked it. So anyways,
The
long story
anonymity
short,
is comforting as well.
Right.
Just having that is so comforting.
Test the waters.
Yeah.
and through social media, I met these folks from Wahine Media in Hawaii, and I went out there to speak about Jagoffs at a social media summit, and
In Hawaii.
You went to Hawaii.
Talk about that. And Karen,
That's classic.
Karen from Wahine Media, and she sat down and she said, this is not going to go anywhere unless you put a face and a name on it. And I'm like, oh man. So that's when the videos started, and then the podcast, like I said, getting long in the tooth in the story. But the fact is, it was very organic, because but I always wanted to make sure it was tasteful, because whenever my kids found out about it, I didn't want them to think like, oh my God, my dad's embarrassing me by throwing swear words up on a website and all that kind of stuff. So
I think it's terrible that we let how our children perceive us alter the thing.
Well,
listen, the coolest part was when I did tell my kids, because I was taking my daughter to Hawaii with me, and when I did tell them, and Twitter was popular back then, and when my daughter found out I had far more followers than she did on Twitter, she was like, oh my God.
it's so funny.
Now, one last thing on how did they grasp the concept in Hawaii of?
It's a long story.
they have a Jag-off?
I'll tell you.
Do they
but
have Jag-offs?
I'll tell you, but you can
course
edit
they
this
do.
out. First of all, there are tons of Pittsburghers over there.
Oh, yeah.
Expats. But what happened is I was asking for advice on Twitter, because I didn't want to ask anybody locally, because I didn't want anybody to know it was me. So they would give me advice, and we started emailing back and forth because they had a social media company, and this was new to me. I was a vice president of marketing at a company, and I didn't realize what social media was.
Right.
So this was my way to roll up the sleeves and learn social media. So anyways, the point is, they were very helpful to me. So my first iteration of Don't Be a Jagoff t-shirts, I sent them one in the mail and said, thank you very much. Now, they have no idea what a Jagoff is, these two ladies. So
Because
one
they
day-
weren't from here. They were.
They're right. So
I hope they
one
didn't wear
day
them to church.
on Twitter,
Right.
on Twitter, one day the Twitter feed just kept jumping with tags. And here it was them. They were presenting at this Hawaii Social Media Summit, and they were holding up the shirt. And they were explaining how they built this relationship with someone in Pittsburgh who they've never met, and how we've had these conversations, and that's what social media does. It builds relationship if it's done right. And so they were thanking me and holding it. So everybody was typing, "Don't be a Jagoff." So
That's fantastic.
So then the following 2 years is when I went back out there to present. But when I went there, like all of these Pittsburghers came out of the woodwork, and we got them all to say, "Don't be a Jagoff."
There you go.
Things like that.
Right.
So it's crazy how the social media relationship part of it was so positive. I don't know if it's as positive it is now, or as
Now as it was
it's
then.
not. Yeah, it's not as positive.
Is it
as
crazy?
It was, but-
Is it just us, or is it a truth that anywhere you go in the United States, and I'm not sure of any other city, maybe not, there are Pittsburgh, and
can't go
they
anywhere.
are
Crazy.
Pittsburgh.
You can't go
I mean, they
anywhere.
are
That's exactly right.
die-hard. We are from. You ask them, they'd say this and that. I'm from Pittsburgh.
And they'll recognize you just from your accent.
Right.
The accent that we don't believe we have.
Yeah, well, yeah. And we say that. We try to articulate because that's part of our stigma, right? We're already called Ya Jagoff Media. And so we're going into that knowing that some people might be like, what the heck is that? I don't know that I like that term. And hence make sure everybody knows that it's a good term of endearment.
Sure.
But we say, Pittsburgh Dad has his own thing.
Yes.
He speaks the way he speaks.
Right.
It's his shtick. People love it.
his
He's
thing,
created
right.
his following. There's no reason for us to do that because that's not us, and it wouldn't be natural.
Exactly.
So instead, we simply try to relate to the Yinzer culture that obviously has grown. Because you're right, Jack. So many people emulate, relate, and want to be like Pittsburgh.
Sit
And
down
mainly
and,
because of the
okay,
Steelers.
this is what we're doing,
Yeah.
and
Penguins,
we're going to do this and
Yeah.
that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. We did it. We experienced that in the 70s. In the 70s, we had not only the 4 Super Bowls, obviously, but the Pirates were really
Sure.
good then.
Yeah.
They won 2 World Series. They were in the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
So, that's when Pittsburgh really started to, I think, reach the national conscious.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
When you had Willie Stargell and Terry Bradshaw on the cover of Sports Illustrated and the City of Champions, that's when it all started.
Then 1984, they draft a
That was a good book.
lanky young French Canadian, and it changes
Exactly.
the landscape.
Exactly.
I mean, it
Yes.
changes the landscape.
Yes.
One of the things Jack and I talk about a lot, because I was never a hockey guy until the grandkids, right? Because back then the Penguins stunk.
Yeah.
They weren't any good, right? You had Pierre LaRouche. They wore those goofy blue jerseys, and they lost to everybody.
Right.
So we didn't pay any attention to hockey. Okay, so and you had the Steelers and the Pirates. But now, so I start learning about hockey again because the kids want to play hockey. So, ball hockey. I had no idea what that was. So I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute, ice hockey. What's the difference? There's one has skates, the other one doesn't. So all of those things and it's become probably as big of a sport of an interest for young kids as football and baseball and basketball now.
I think we're working at it.
Yeah.
I think that it's not there yet. I think that there is a really good intent and a really well-laid plan in place. Wouldn't you agree?
100%.
I think New
Yeah.
Jersey has mastered it as
Right.
100%.
as
We're
their
coming,
thing.
We're coming for you, Jersey.
We are, but they've become our allies. I have to say, the biggest form of flattery is wanting to be like, right? And
Right,
so you
right.
look at that and you say, this is what they were able to build. Prime example is you mentioned my son Roman. I love knowing that I could go in various parts of this city, and if I say my son is Roman Rennebeck, they know who he is because of ball hockey.
Right.
The biggest thing was the biggest obstacle was trying to get ice hockey people to get that, because there's still a stigma of you go on concrete and you fake play hockey. And that's not
That's
true
exactly
because
right.
what's happening is, and Jack can attest to this from our ball hockey world, a lot of the ice hockey people are realizing that you can teach someone how to skate, but you can't always teach that fundamental hand-eye coordination, ability to know when the play is about to happen, the defensive skills. Those things are separate and need to be developed, and that's what ball hockey has done really good.
I've had ice hockey people tell me that because my younger grandson has never played ice hockey. He's never, he's skated, but he's never skated, right?
Sure.
But he's a really good ball hockey player, and I've had people that do ice tell me that he has that skill set, the hand-eye coordination and those types of things. So the transition from ball hockey to ice hockey would be better than the other way around.
And you're right, in my opinion. I can't speak for everyone, but also the cost of it. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Some people, an only child versus I have 3 children. If I was going to pay for all 3 children to start ice hockey lessons at, 4 is the average age that you're supposed to start,
Sure.
I wouldn't be able to, I'd be working nonstop. It's just an affordability factor that I think ball hockey is also helping with.
What's really right now, though, is happening, it just happened over, say, the last 3 years, is some of the, not just best ice hockey players in this area, some of the best national ice hockey players, the Svobodas, Moonies, Fergusons, these kids are getting national looks.
Yes.
They are agreeing to terms with Boston University.
Yep.
They are the #1 ranked 07s in the country. And these kids are
so
playing
true.
ball hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, they're playing ball hockey,
Sure.
and they're starting to see now that
It's staying, it's sticking.
it's not going anywhere.
Don't be a Jagoff.
07s
like deck
for
hockey.
non-hockey people.
Oh, these are birth years.
Yeah,
Everything's
okay.
birth.
Okay.
I keep,
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I
they're
forget
birth years.
sometimes.
I just
John, you're
learned that.
a
I
hockey
learned that
guy.
the other day. Believe me.
Yeah.
But and we didn't want to turn this into a hockey podcast.
No,
But
yeah.
I mean, we could talk about
It
it.
is. It is right now. It is a hockey podcast.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So we'll just forget about everything else, and we'll let Jack talk about hockey.
No, please.
I can do it all day. John, you're a hockey guy, though.
But
you gotta support me on this. You're a hockey
it's
guy.
so right in that when I learned to play hockey back when the Flintstones were playing, and it was set in your ways. You learn how to skate, learn how to skate. You'll figure out the hockey skills later. Right. And the ball hockey has completely flipped, especially Pittsburgh ball hockey has completely flipped that equation, because you watch the hand-eye coordination of trying to follow the bouncing ball is so incredibly different than the puck. So the hand-eye coordination, and you watch the folks at Team Pitt, where they do coach kids on where it's not the Keystone Cops running around trying to follow the ball. It's everybody's in the right place. So they're learning hand-eye coordination, they're learning skills, and then figure out how to skate. Like, they've completely flipped the equation for those who were pompous about it years ago, the traditionalists, as you would say. It's just crazy, because the first time I ever saw the Rennebeck kids play, I'm like, all these kids know hand-eye coordination, and they know where to be. Where, I played in over 40 league, some of the guys still don't know where to be, and they stop by wrecking into the wall.
You pretty much described my,
but it's really cool how Pittsburgh has taken a leadership position on the ball hockey
But
thing.
John lives 1 block, literally. Like, I'm not going to give your address, I promise. But he lives 1 block from Team Pittsburgh, and he makes a point of coming to watch the NBHL games, because that is so much entertainment. Isn't it great?
It's a lot of fun.
They're just going to go around knocking on doors until you answer.
Because listen,
When
my
there are 12 houses
grandkids
they have
played
to
a
choose
couple
from?
seasons at Team Pitt, so I know. So I'll be there.
Well, it's also
We'll
a
find
place where I can get dinner. And
Did this ever happen before?
No. This is fantastic.
Are we still recording?
I love it. If we're still recording, let's just do it in the dark.
We can
Okay,
edit.
cool.
Yeah, we can edit.
We'll do it in the dark. What the heck?
In post.
Yeah,
It's the whole shot. Man.
in post. I saw that.
And hopefully you're not responsible for that. Okay.
Even if you are, we're on your side, brother.
Yeah.
I really did not want that, though, to go.
We'll fight our way out.
Oh, we don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't care, we don't care.
No. That said, though, what did John? Did you ever do a podcast without her? Did you, or it was always the two of you when you started?
The podcast started initially with other people, but then Rachel contacted. Well, we knew each other,
And she pushed her way into it.
and she said,
No.
"No, it is a good
But
story."
she did save you. apparently, because you were doing like blog 11 years ago.
I did not
you were doing this
save,
and that,
but-
and then she comes in, and all of a sudden
She
you're like the best
escalated.
blog.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
there's
But
no
it's really
argument
all
on
about
that.
her.
There's really
No, it's not.
There's really no argument about it in that, whether you want to say, it's, she didn't just come in and say, okay, where am I on Saturday? It was come in, all right, how do I roll up my sleeves and get in here, own it in her mind, in her heart, in her soul, and say, let's get dirty on this. Let's figure it out. So she owned it from the moment that we agreed to partner. So that's the kind of partner that you want.
Right.
And then it just kind of one thing led to another in the whole media and marketing. We were already doing that. So why wouldn't I talk to her and say, one of the biggest decisions in the podcast life was because of Rachel. And it was turning down something, and we used her advice.
He was given an opportunity to have a sponsor early on. And we are very fortunate that we do have a sponsor, Rory Condo. I'm not plugging them, but they
just
saw,
did.
but
Plug
they
away.
saw,
Plug away.
but they saw value in us,
Yeah.
3 years ago. And they've been so good to us. Whatever
your
we
first-
do.
that was your first?
They were not.
Okay.
Total Sports Enterprises was
Everybody
our first.
remembers their first, Jack.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
That's exactly right.
Where is
Yeah.
this going?
Yeah,
So
my wife's going to watch this podcast.
John was approached by a club that no longer exists for $30,000 a year, which is a lot in podcast money,
Wow,
for
yeah.
a sponsorship.
Wow.
And he asked me what I thought about it. Is that what it was? You're looking at me like I'm wrong.
No,
Okay. And we just said that it wasn't. I didn't think it was the appropriate decision.
I love that he's just going to let you go
Yeah,
with it.
I
Even
don't
if you
know.
were. He wasn't.
He's giving me a face though, so. Anyways. We just thought it wasn't the right move.
Sure.
And so he turned it down. And that's life, right? Because we say this all the time. When people call now and say, I want to sponsor your podcast, or how do I get on? How much does it cost?
Right.
We truly sit down. We're the fools, right? We sit down and assess the situation and say, it's not a fit. We had a major national gaming. I forget what it was. Was it EA Sports?
Yeah, there's some
Something
kind
like
of,
that.
it wasn't EA, but it was some kind
Something
of
like
sports
that.
app
Okay.
where you could get on and kind of not bet, but do
Download.
brackets.
We didn't
Oh,
understand
like
it.
cheer on for your team. And,
okay.
this
And we were
lady
like,
said,
we're
"We'd
not
love
your
for you to do this. We're
demographic."
not your demographic at all.
Yeah, so we turned it down. I mean, we're not going to take money just to take money.
Sure.
We want it to be a fit. And so we sort of figured out what you guys were saying, about your jobs and how, you first sell to your families and then
Right.
that's what you do in life. It's trial and error. And our theory was one podcast episode with us is going to get you nothing.
Sure.
It's going to get you a buzz with people talking about you. But that's it, because once that's short-lived, and once that episode's over, what's next?
What comes after?
So what we do is we build value in each podcast to say, how does this make sense? So everyone's tailor-made. So Chris Donardo, who we
Yep.
were speaking of, he really wanted to get a little spark with his hot sauce. And so he
Great
sponsored
hot
us.
sauce.
Yeah,
by the
it is
way.
great.
His pub sauce is amazing.
Amazing, and he came on and sponsored us for 3 months. And, he's
Okay.
very happy with how that went because we gave him constant publicity in the sense that there was social media behind it. There were blog posts about
Absolutely.
it. He came on the podcast. It wasn't just a mention. So it's figuring out that formula that makes sense for both, because let's face it, if you buy one time with me and it doesn't work, you're not coming back. So what's the point? I failed you,
Right.
so
And so the podcast is part of your overall marketing package. I mean, is that right?
it can be. It's not always.
It's not always, but
Yeah.
okay.
Some
That's a
people,
great
as
idea,
we've grown,
truthfully.
I guess, right? No, the beginning was I worked for the Tribune Review while
Right.
my kids were in school, and then I went back into the workforce when all of them were in school full time, and it was a marketing agency, Markowitz Communications, and I learned more PR because from the media world and the marketing world, PR didn't exist.
Right.
So then all of a sudden it did, and I was like, what just happened that all these avenues morphed together? I need to figure this out. I worked there for 2 years. It was such a great experience. I met John. I always say Russell Howard from the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership and John Chamberlain were the two people I met that I sponged everything I could to learn.
Very cool.
And we just really clicked in the sense that we understood each other
Way to go,
and said,
John.
I know.
Way to go.
He's
And I'm
that
sitting
guy.
here telling everybody that you guys are pros. Well, obviously,
You know what?
His
obviously
Find My
Rachel
Wallet will
is-
come up next.
Actually, he said if Rachel starts to run on,
Yes!
I was to call him
That's
real
it.
quick.
To be-
He's like, let's talk about my book some more.
to be totally honest, I am the person who forgets everything.
Thank
and
you.
Rachel remembers everything. So I had set
So
an
about my
alarm
book.
that we have to do a call in to a radio station every Friday, and I always forget. So every Friday morning I set my alarm to go do that. But
Anyway, it was all good. It was good opportunity. No, it was just good opportunity. And that's how it's worked. So the podcast existed. We've been doing it together for 4 years. I think I'm going on 5.
I think you're going on 6.
And it's been around a little, I think it was 2016. So we met there, we enjoyed each other's creativity and started bouncing things like he said. I quit to go on my own. Everybody has this grandiose opportunity thinking like, I'm gonna have 5 clients. I had 0.
Yeah.
My husband said, let's figure this out. You know, it's Christmas time. So let's figure out what you are, who are you gonna freelance for? I got 2 freelance opportunities in December just to get through. And by January, Total Sports Enterprises, which is a consignment, like autographing place, they hired me to do marketing. And I said, you need a sponsor, you need a media sponsor. But they didn't have the budget to have WTAE or the PG. Sure. So we brought John on, and at that point, he was the outlet, the platform for them to kind of get their word out. And we had a great time. It was a great run. They were our first sponsor, and then he brought me on. He tells the story that I said, I really like this thing. What can I do? And he says, no.
No. It was like I didn't have the faith in it that she had at the time. So she's like, hey, can I, not can I
said,
get
how
in
can
on
I be
this, but,
helpful?
how can I be helpful? I'd like to work with this and whatever.
Sure.
And I'm sitting here thinking like, you have a family.
He's
and
like,
don't
get going.
I don't want to be
Move along.
I don't want you to be a part of something that's nothing.
Right.
And to be honest, as we said, from the moment she got in on it, it elevated
that's not
it
true.
incredibly. And the fact that people think we're brother and sister.
Or
because-
married.
You play off each other
And-
very
Or
well.
married, yeah.
Well, we haven't known each other for longer than 5 or 6 years. And
Right.
the fact is, I feel like we've known each other for 30. And you just know when you know. And that, it's part of Rachel's drive, Rachel's brain that elevated, but it's also the teamwork that happens because we really do interact very well.
I've watched you guys, I don't know how many times, and it is, I'm not just saying this because you're saying it's seamless. I mean, when you watch you guys live, it is seamless, finishing each other's sentences, ideas, the whole 9 yards.
And the cool thing is finishing each other's sentences without stepping on each other's toes.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
important. That is important. That's
And,
a big deal.
out of all, when you're thinking about the things that are important behind us here, out of all of that, our families have become close. So
That's awesome.
I'll sometimes take her kids to school, or they're
I watch his
supporting
granddaughter.
right. And then they support my son in his endeavors, and so it's just crazy how. And we both were a hockey family. We're not a hockey family like they are. Like we barely are a hockey family compared to what their hockey family is. But
There's very few that are hockey family
We all like hockey, love hockey, live hockey.
Right.
So it's just kind of funny how it all came together.
No, I'm gonna be selfish one more time.
Do it.
Do it.
If it's not hockey, one of the other things I just absolutely thoroughly enjoy is craft beer. So let's
That's
talk
not
about.
selfish.
Let's talk real quick.
I don't.
Take it then.
You guys with North Country.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Tell me about how that happened. How did that come? Because this is fantastic. This is right up my alley. Not only is she a hockey
You're so
family.
good. You're
We
too
love that
cute.
stuff. No, listen.
No.
Well, not only is she
You're
a
talking our
hockey,
language,
not only
you're
we got a
talking
hockey
beer.
family here, it's
It's
you
beer.
guys are a beer thing too, and really we could end the whole pod right now. We'll do hockey, we'll do beer, I'm out. That's
There
it.
you
I'm
go.
good.
There you go.
But how did that happen? How did that?
Relationships. I mean, truly, it's relationships. We were so lucky because, obviously, as we talked, Jim, about like inspiration and how you continue to move forward, right? So we are not millennials, clearly, and everybody in Pittsburgh has a marketing company.
Right.
We're the seasoned. We've done this. We've been in media. We've been in PR. We've been in marketing. We figured out the podcast route. They consider us like, grandparents as far as longevity because we're fortunate because a lot of podcasts
The
tank.
OGs, yeah.
Yeah, so we're lucky because you keep seeing like, what's next, OG?
I love that. John got a chuckle out of that one.
So we try to find new locations because if we're not, you're only as good as your last hit with everything.
Right.
So it's like, We can repeat podcasts in certain places, sorry. But what else is going on? So we've been trying to venture into other counties. And so 2 years ago, we went to Butler County for North Country Brewing because we didn't know that there was anything beyond the restaurant. And apparently there's this cannery that's amazing. So we had a podcast there, and they were talking about how they, you know, kind of partner with different nonprofits, and they'll like design a beer for someone who can sell it. And they were like, why don't you guys do it? And we were like, okay. And they were like, but listen, winter is the worst time to sell beer. And John was like, we'll wait until spring. I was like, we're doing it right now. Bring it. We were like, get that taken care of. We're going to sell this bleep in the winter, and we're going to be fine.
But it's a great winter beer.
You know, it's great all the time.
Yeah,
but we don't know anything about beer.
Yeah, no, it is an all-year beer, but
Yeah.
if you're going to release, that's a great winter release.
We'll tell them how we decided on the taste.
Yeah. So we were sitting there thinking like, wow, since it's Pittsburgh, we should do a strawberry Jello pretzel salad beer.
Right.
Or
pierogi. Or pierogi.
Absolutely.
And the scary part is the brewer said, I can do that.
A stout like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh
Yes.
my
Yeah,
God.
we can do a
And we
stout
said,
like
wait
that.
a minute. Maybe we don't want to be fast. We want to be a fad. We
Well,
want to
remember
be a
Patrick
thing,
was like,
right? And so we ended up putting it up on our Instagram, social media threads and saying, what should we make? Gave them some choices. And American Light Lager came out. So like you were saying, Jack, so it came out in March and they were like, well, this is going to be a summer beer because it's a light beer. We're like, okay, but the cool thing is fast forward the story is it did this. We sold 82 cases out of 90 or something in the first 3 weeks of the trial run, and then it went to Primanti's, then it went to Giant Eagle, and then they said, wait a minute, we're going to make this all year long. And we said, sure. And so one thing led to another, and here we are. So they are
number
making
two.
it all year long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're their
Nice.
number 2 selling beer.
And what's really, we're so lucky because apparently beer prices have gone up, and Miller Lite likers, this is what it's similar to like a Miller Lite beer.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Miller Lite has had to raise their prices. So a lot of the restaurants who went in on this are realizing now that ours is their go-to beer because it's
that's the
cheaper as
alternative,
well.
right.
Not just
Yeah.
because it's
It is good.
better than milk. Yeah,
Thank you.
And and people that like light beer, I would say the same thing because I do like the beer. Is that it's a light beer with a taste.
It has a lot of flavor.
You know,
That's amazing.
it's just kind of funny how it all has come around full circle in that we know nothing about beer and we've learned a lot more than we need to know about beer sales and distributors and how things are legal and you can't give this away, you can't give that away. But the bottom line is we're marketers. So we tried to market the crap out of it. And now it's at PNC Park for a pirate.
Cue the confetti.
nice.
Cue the confetti.
I'm a self-proclaimed budding beer snob, and you guys have a great beer. That's the bottom line. It's a great beer. It's a great beer.
The other cool thing is that it wasn't one of their beers that they just threw a label on. It was an original recipe
100%.
that they tried, and then they liked it. So that was kind of cool.
And I love seeing the people who follow us. They'll be at House of 1,000 Beers in New Kensington, and they'll see it,
Great
and they'll
place,
take a
by the
snap.
way.
Right,
Great
right.
plug. Yeah, great
and
plug.
I love those guys.
Love 'em.
And they'll tag us, and we're like, so we reshare, and that's all part of it, right? The relatability and the relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
They're the reason we're here, and so we're going to continue to say thanks, Michelle Manfred, or thanks whoever saw it. wherever.
We do the Thanksgiving hockey game, and it's
Yes.
it's BYOB, and we had there was some Ya Jagoff beer, and I was like, yeah, I know them.
We pulled a Jagoff.
They're like, what are you drinking? I was like, Ya Jagoff, I know 'em.
I love it.
Yeah, I know 'em.
them.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, and I'm not a beer connoisseur, but it's
a good beer.
They're great people. North Country Brewing are great people.
But that
so.
story, just that story,
Yeah.
that beer took off.
Yeah.
Like you guys, that took off.
It did, but we also are lucky because we talk to them nonstop. Like there's constant communication. Patrick, who I've referenced now, we're texting with him 4 or 5 times daily, a day. Hey, what do you think about this? Like he'll text us and say, do you think we could get into Kennywood? And we're like, let's see what we can do. Or we say, this person's asking, this one beer distributor near me said, I want to carry your beer. He bought 15 cases. In 3 days, they sold out. So he ordered 22 more because people from Ohio were coming there to Rush
I know that
Township.
story, yeah. Sure.
And now he said, could I get a sandwich board that has your logo? And I was like, make it happen. He needs that. And now people take pictures. So
So like as the beer world evolves, like you start out, you get beer, you do beer, then you put some more money behind it, they do. And so now it's down to t-shirt. They're now putting promo behind it. They're putting glasses, they're putting t-shirts and tap handles because it's gone so well. Again, we're lucky. The name is catchy and the brand is respectable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
As far as the brand that we are, we're not out there.
I mean, my husband's sick of it.
Bad things.
Right? He's like, I don't want Ya Jagoff beer. I'm buying an IPA. Like, whatever.
It's weird when I give my granddaughter a case of it for her christening, but it's cheap.
And don't be surprised if you get a gift of it.
Right. I mean, it'll be in a bow.
I will say, since you guys are tight with the North Country people.
Yeah, I know.
Buck's North Stout is one of my favorite stouts.
We gave it to No, Willie doesn't like it. Jack liked it.
It's one of my favorite stouts.
We had it at
it's a
graduation.
local. I mean, it's not just one of my favorite local stouts.
Right.
It's one of my favorite stouts.
How
and
crazy,
it's a local
isn't
stout.
it? It's
Yeah,
it's Western
fantastic.
Pennsylvania.
It is. It's Western PA. It's all Pittsburgh. Western PA is Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And I'm the one idiot at PNC Park that's drinking a stout in 95-degree weather at the Buckos game. Everybody's looking at me like, and I'm chewing through it. It's a great beer. It's just a great beer. Yeah,
It is like that, Jack. Yeah, I can't do it. We need a Tito's. We need a Jagoff vodka.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Or no, there's already a parking chair vodka, so we'll just support that.
Ya Jagoff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's great that you guys have this marketing background and you found a way to blend all of this stuff together and even choosing North Country Brewing, right? Because you have your brand, right? Ya Jagoff, it's a catchy name, it's a cool brand, but if that beer doesn't taste good, none of this works.
Correct.
None of this happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hurts you guys as the brand. If like I get this beer, and Ya Jagoff, hey, those guys are great. Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, so much as, quick example, we just did a wiffle ball tournament. We're part of Odyssey, which is Y108, 93.7, The Fan, KDK, Star. And they came, Joe Starkey was coming on. I worked with him years ago at the Trib. He's on 93.7 The Fan. He was coming on the podcast to celebrate at Mike's Beer Bar, which is across from PNC Park. We were having a can opening day because, instead of it being opening day.
Right.
And so Starkey came on and TJ the DJ and those guys, and they were, doing the wiffle ball bat. But my favorite part was that Larry Richard and Kevin Battle came. And Kevin did a really good job of hitting, don't you think? Yeah. But they all thought that the wiffle ball thing was so clever and unique. And it brought different people to Mike's Beer Bar. And Mike, who's a phenomenal guy, was so appreciative, even though he does sales out the wazoo. He was like, there's faces I haven't seen before. Right. And that's the cool collaboration part. However, I'll tell you, someone who was close to us was like, something's up with this one beer. It happens, right? Like maybe it's the CO2 tank or maybe it's whatever. Sure. And we literally texted them and we were like, listen, we don't know if it was just a fluke thing, but we just want you to know someone said this. And it's like handled. You're not waiting for 6 people to go through a line and call you back. And stuff happens.
That's fantastic.
It does happen. Yeah, it does happen. But that's the great part about Pittsburgh. I travel a lot for work and networking is a big, big deal, but no other city does it as well as we do here. And I believe that.
I would agree. In a previous life, I remember sitting at this very, very swanky conference in Dallas, Fort Worth. And we were in a very, very high-end bar. We're all in ties, and we're sitting around, and we're having drinks, and gentleman's talking to me. He sells airplanes for a living, and, we start saying whatever. And I say, Mancini's bread. And he looks at me and says, Mancini's bread, like that's the rocks. Where he goes, is that the effing rocks? And I said, yeah. And right away, it's almost, we could have been in sweatpants and sweatshirt, no ties.
Exactly.
Yeah, the collar's loosen up, the drinks.
The conversation got so down to earth and versus, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Exactly.
It just became so Western
I never talked like that.
Pennsylvania-ish. It was just great. Like, wow, we just leveled the playing field because we're both from Pittsburgh and
we're very informal people here.
Yeah.
Yes. We don't stand on any kind of, we're very informal, very down to earth.
And talkers.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. My wife gets very angry with me because I can't go out in public. If I have to wait in a line for a coffee and there's more than 2 people ahead of me, I know everything about the person behind
You're
me.
making a best friend.
Same.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all of Pittsburgh. That's anywhere you go.
My kids make bets in the car and go, how many people is she going to talk to before she comes out of the giant eagle?
1,000,006.
I'm not kidding you.
Yeah,
It's
1,000,006.
hysterical. They're like, here we go.
You could be like this. You could be,
Here we go.
Rachel, I'm having chest pain. Please dial 911. She'll go, 911. Is that Jimmy from second grade?
From second grade.
I knew you were. He always says second grade. I've never happened in second grade.
And you're like, hello?
Yeah.
She's like, hold on, I have to have this
Hold
conversation
on, his
with this
sister was a
person.
nurse. Maybe he can call her.
For crying
No, it's
out
very
loud.
true though, because there's Pittsburghers everywhere. My wife and I, we had a daughter and grandkids in the car. We're going to a wedding in Cleveland, so we're going right where PA Turnpike turns into the Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
Turnpike, right. This was a few years ago when there were still toll takers.
Right.
So we pull up to the toll booth and I go to pay, and I knew the guy taking the toll. He was from Pittsburgh, and it's like.
How is that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, but we're everywhere. I have never gone to a city for a conference or just work in general that I have not run into somebody from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
And to that point, and again, just to kind of bring it back to the podcast, we found in our early days with Total Sports Enterprises that we had access to a lot of the Steelers because they were doing signings. They had a contract with, Rocky Blyer and Franco Harris, and they were some of our greatest memories. Like when we're asked, what are your favorite memories, we often say like we got Franco to sing Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire when they were like, don't interview Franco. Right?
Who does that?
It's the greatest clip ever, and he literally is singing it, and we're like this, like, come on, sing it, Franco.
Franco doesn't even like to talk to
Right.
people.
And so those were great memories. We did, Juju's gone now, but we did Juju Claus, his
Right.
first time here, and it was an amazing opportunity. But when we left TSE, and we were, of course, nervous about what happens next, but we're not going to continue to take money where it's not working anymore for all of us. So we moved on, and literally by week 2, like we said, thank goodness for Rorik, it's been a great relationship. But once we moved on, we knew we don't have that access anymore. So what does that look like?
Yes.
You're forced to rely on your raw talent. And thankfully that was 3.5 years ago. So obviously it was the right decision for everybody.
Exactly.
Time heals, life is what it is. But some of our favorite and most effective interviews are everyday people from Western Pennsylvania. John, tell your top 2.
TC, the TC, the guy at the vendor.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I didn't do it well enough.
He grew up, I don't even know how to whistle like that, but he grew up in the Rocks, and like I knew his family, but he's such a famous beer vendor that he gets hired to go do like the Kentucky Derby. He goes around to other places.
Yeah, he's a celebrity.
He's a character.
During the heyday, the Lemieux heyday, we had 2 vendors at the Civic Arena that make not just Pittsburgh hockey highlights, they just make hockey highlights.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
they were 2 of the,
Sure.
just.
But that's his and then he also saw you, well, that's a story.
No, what?
He saw you at the funeral home. Yeah. He's like, what's up, Ya Jagoff at the funeral home? Like, who
At least he didn't whistle.
We were both on another podcast. Not that there are any other than this one,
This
but,
is it.
but
Yeah.
we were on another podcast and they asked us like, "What's the craziest thing?" We both have the same story at different times. Both of us have been at funeral homes during visitations where someone said "Ya Jagoff." Like I was in line to greet the family, and someone came up behind me and said,
And they whisper.
"My wife follows Ya Jagoff." And she had something similar at a different
Good to
funeral
see you,
home.
Ya Jagoff. And they're like, you don't want to say it. I'm like, we're in a funeral home. Oh, hi, how are you? But no, your other favorite is the ice curator. Jack would appreciate that, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, who knew? We love to have people with odd jobs. So the Penguins, hired an ice curator out of Minnesota, and
The Whisperer.
his job is to make sure the ice is the specific thickness, specific temperature to what Mario wanted it to be during the season and then during the playoff games. Really? So that's his specialty, and he's actually one of the guys, at least when we interviewed him then, he's one of the guys that's the forerunner as far as setting these things up at the stadiums for the outside games. That's
So
his
cool.
specialty.
Yeah.
So
It's awesome.
Who knew? Who
knew that was a thing?
You
Yes.
just figured there was a Zamboni guy that goes and puts
Zamboni.
water
No,
down.
no, no,
No, they walk around and Zamboni.
Zembo. I feel like I have to say
It's
it.
crazy. It's just crazy. Like, wow, we have that.
But then we
here.
were lucky, like we say, Cyril Wecht has been on 3 times. the best was when we do some work for Santonio Holmes for his sickle cell foundation.
Oh, okay.
And he would come in every August and he would do our podcast to kind of launch that he's coming in October to do this bowling event. And we said, hey, we're doing a porch tour, which is we pick 4 listeners, we go to their porch and we bring, our guests. And there's always a musician on site, etc. And it was Santonio Holmes and Cyril Wecht. Like craziest combo ever. But this is the best
those
part.
two things don't go together.
Huge touchdown in the Super Bowl, and the guy who debunked the Warren Commission.
Right.
Right, but 2 of the greatest guests ever. And
Absolutely.
I
can listen to Cyril Wecht all day.
That's what I was just going to say.
It's amazing.
As podcasters, you have to watch your time. And for us, we typically have like 3 guests at like 12 minutes each.
Okay.
So that didn't work with Cyril. It was like,
No.
Oh, no.
SpongeBob, like 6 hours
We said,
later.
how you doing? We said, all we did was say, it's like starting your lawnmower.
You don't put a watch on him. Yeah.
We said, how you doing? And he went,
And he has the most he did a book signing right down here at the Menneson Civic Center.
Yes.
Oh, he's amazing.
Most relatable guy.
Yeah, and I went down.
Absolutely.
I had him sign a book that he had written earlier, and I bought his. And you ask him one question, and he has
you're-
such a
You're engaged.
peculiar way of
Yeah.
a manner of
Yeah.
speaking. It's
Yes.
and he's very articulate, and you are
Oh, he's
literally
brilliant.
on the
Yeah,
edge
he's
of
brilliant.
your seat, like you're on the edge of your seat.
You are thankful that you're in his presence. And so he went
Absolutely.
about an hour, would you say, 55 minutes?
Yeah.
And he goes like this. Okay, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I would like to go over and meet Mr. Holmes. And me and John were like, okay. We were like, John.
We're done with you now. He was the speaker at a function, and he did his thing. The first thing he did, we sat down, he said, I'm not going to talk about the Kennedy assassination. I'll talk about anything but that, but I am not going to talk about the Kennedy assassination. And then he proceeded to talk for 90 minutes about the
About
Kennedy
it.
assassination.
Yeah.
And he just completely blew everything out of the water, And by the time he was done, okay, yeah, that's what happened.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You can't doubt what he's saying because
And there
he's
is,
so
to me, there's a respect for the elderly because of him.
Yes.
For people who don't take the elderly into,
Absolutely.
perspective, like, look at this man. He's one of the most brilliant people of all time, and he's in our city at 92 years old.
Okay,
Exactly.
first big guest you guys ever had was who?
Oh. The hockey player.
oh, yeah, I guess, there are 2. Yarmer Yager would be one.
I'm talking the first.
The first big
The
guest.
first thing.
Yeah, you
Oh,
said
you
you never
had-
forget your first.
Yeah, come on. The first person that you guys were like, this is who's coming in today.
This,
Because you guys are that for us. We were doing it
please.
together.
Garth Brooks. Not for
Oh,
me.
yeah,
I'm
Garth
trying to be a pro
one-on-one
on this.
One-on-one with Garth Brooks for 10
Oh
minutes.
my,
How
you're
cool
kidding.
was that?
Yeah, it was totally. It just kind of happened, and we made it happen, but we kind of cheated our way into there. And it's a good story for another time. But Garth Brooks. But the crazy thing is, Yarmer Yager came to one of the signings. Rachel got the luxury. I'm going to say it in quotes because she got the luxury of going to pick him up at his hotel.
And I don't know how to drive in the city, and I've been here 46 years.
And she drove him to the place where
He
we were.
doesn't either if his
Well,
reputation.
Right. She drove him to the place where we were interviewing him. And during that time, she had to play Mom Rachel and talk him into giving us 5 minutes of his time to do an interview. And at that time, he treated her. Okay.
It's one of those, like, you had this expectation, like, you know what you know about the person,
right.
but you still have this, like, expectation. Yeah. And then it got to a point where I was like, I don't care, but I do, because I've now dealt with your attitude for an hour and a half. You're giving me an interview.
Right.
And he turns the charm on. I mean,
Is that right?
But it was probably the worst experience we ever
But
had.
he had a hockey game on. That's your friend. He had a hockey.
He was like this.
He had a hockey game on that he was watching,
Uh-huh.
and he went and he put it in his pocket. So the entire time we were interviewing him, you
can
hear
hear
the
it.
hockey game on. Yeah.
Because he owns that team in the Czech Republic, so
Yeah.
that's what he was
Okay.
watching.
Right.
Yeah, but
It was fine.
So
It
I
was
mean,
fine.
I guess that's.
But we also have gotten to be such good friends with so many like monumental people, like Leslie Bonsi. She's a renowned nutritionist for the Kansas City Chiefs, and we produce her Saffron and Sass segment, every month. She does a really unique segment, and we get to have her on from a dietitian standpoint. Or Doug Oster, who's like the green thumb guru. He comes on quarterly. Josh Axelrod from the Post-Gazette, he gets to interview the most amazing Netflix stars who have been through and break all this amazing news. He's like, oh, I was on with Michael Keaton. Sorry I didn't answer your call. I'm like, whatever, Josh. You know?
And, you know, I think back when Juju was just little Juju, you know, Rachel had a relationship with his mom, and we helped him do this Juju Claus thing that we thought up on the turnpike when we were driving home. And you know, he started calling her. He didn't even call her by her name. It's just Cool Mom. Hey, you're Cool Mom. We would, and every other time we would see him, she'd go, Cool Mom. Hey, Cool Mom.
He was a great kid, yeah.
And
he'll be missed. There's no doubt about that.
So, but you know, we've been lucky enough to have those experiences. But there are so many Pittsburgh characters that people know, but they don't really know.
Right.
You know,
and nonprofits.
Yeah.
And you know, we just really want to shine the light on people. We always say, you know, people will look at our following, and we're very lucky, but it's a number, right? Just because you have 20,000 Facebook followers doesn't mean that every one of those people see what you say every day.
That's exactly
you know,
right.
we might be silenced by 15,000 of them. Who knows? Sure. But when you can connect with a message where someone says, I saw this.
Right.
Would you help me do this? You know, yeah. How can we be helpful? You know, one of the clients we do work for, we do a lot with our trade unions, and Local 2, which is in Beaver County.
Yes.
They are doing this I'm not plugging it, but they are doing this really cool swab. They're turning their entire facility into a swab center for this little boy who needs a bone marrow transplant. Like, how do you not do that? How do you not get behind it? And so we're, you know.
You have to. And you, by the way, you did just plug it, but that's okay.
I don't care. Yeah, right?
Because, listen, that's a cool thing.
It is a cool
that's
thing.
Amazing.
Well, the craziest thing is that he has his heritage is not white American.
Right.
So the percentage that any white American male or female could help him is low. So you have to have certain traits. And so he needs more people to
flood the
go,
pool.
Yes, right, to find that one.
Right.
As his mom said, 1 in 1.6 million.
Yep.
Is going to be his match.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because my mother and her 4 friends that watch this podcast
There you
will
go.
be able to spread that
There
around.
you go.
Listen, that's what we need. We need that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's true, because you talk about it once, and it's crazy how,
Yeah, it is.
you know,
it is.
does
It's
move.
amazing. So you guys, something that I found out today when we were talking before, that I find very intriguing, is that you guys actually produce other podcasts and things like that, and support those things. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you get into that? Was that just something that happened organically from your podcast?
I think the honest answer is, pointed out again, we're in our 40s and 50s. We are lucky that we get, you know, we joke that 2 weeks ago when Pittsburgh Magazine was doing their best of again, Chris Miller, who's one of the renegades of the Rotunda at PNC Park, you know, the Pirates, he has a podcast, and he wanted his podcast to win. And his tact to win was he tagged us in a Facebook post.
This is great. Yeah.
And he said, stop voting for John and Rachel from Ya Jagoff. They win everything. And so
I saw that. I did see that. I saw
I was
that.
in hockey, and I looked at it, and I had 4 people text and go, oh my God, do you believe Chris, you know? And I screenshot it to him. I said, that was brilliant, you know?
Preemptive.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
And there was no malicious intent, you know,
Right.
it was
He's
fun.
such a good guy.
He's such a good guy. And we were like, we would promote you, but it's such a niche podcast, it wouldn't make, like our followers wouldn't have made sense. But we don't need to have those kinds of winnings, because we are fortunate. We've established it. What's next?
Yes.
Is basically our thing.
Yes.
And I'm not saying we don't appreciate the nods, but we didn't push to be best of, because we've done it a few times.
Right.
You know, so what's next? We have age as our barrier, we have time as our barrier, we have life as our barrier, and trends change. And we said, how do we continue to, 1, stay relevant, and 2, help others in the sense that what comes natural to us, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
UPMC Stat Medevac, we do their social media marketing for their Life Flight program. And so we have a podcast there that is so amazing, because it's these crazy, amazing people who are in this niche industry that tell us their stories. So we love that part. Izazu Hair Salon, you know, we are affiliated with them. They're the craziest, talk about Pittsburgh characters. So that's been fun, and that was just their next succession. The Merry Widows that we told you about, the widows who are 7 women who
I
have
want
lost
to be
their...
them, because that's
I want to be
fascinating.
them. I want to
Yes,
be them.
that's
I don't want my
amazing.
husband to die, but I want to be them.
say, Willie, if you're watching this, my heart
Stay
goes
alive.
out to you.
Stay alive.
Something to say about that. Yeah.
But I think we're most proud of the most recent. My dad, you know, is a Pittsburgh musician, Johnny Angel from Johnny Angel and the Halos.
Are you serious? Listen, my mother-in-law loves them.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. She's, yes.
Well, and he has been fortunate to remain a Pittsburgh icon as well.
Absolutely.
And, we work with him a lot. And he has a museum in Pittsburgh. And we said, how do we preserve this music scene? It's funny that you talked about Bobby Vinton and things like that. But we presented that we do a Bridging the Gap series, which is a YouTube series for 25 minutes with him and Byron Nash, who's an up-and-coming musician who's amazing. And it's cool because they're two different barriers. My dad's almost 70, Byron is in his 40s. My dad is white, Byron's black. They talk all about music and music barriers and bridging the gap of time.
So cool.
I'll tell you what, we're on episode 4, and I can't believe, John, how well it's gone.
It's crazy because, the whole idea is, Jack might say, I don't understand all this rap stuff, but, for him to be educated that the rap stuff comes from the doo-wop stuff.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
to watch a Beaver County native, Melvin Steele,
Steele's,
who wrote songs for the Spinners and had 52 hit records.
I'm falling in love.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to see him come on in his 80s and spark someone who's in their 20s to know how, now the process is different obviously these days, but the fact is to know that guy was a teacher or a principal in Beaver County and had all these hit songs. There's no reason why this 20-year-old over here doesn't look at that and say, I can learn from him, I can learn from her,
Absolutely.
and bridge that gap, which is why the idea of the show is called.
That's tremendous.
Yeah, we love that.
So we've been, Blue Ocean is a strategy that people write about all the time, and I don't think we're that thoughtful about what we do. But the fact is, I think we are somewhat of a new entity where we're a podcast that kind of started a marketing company because of the podcast, the people that we knew, plus the talents that we had, it kind of all wrapped up.
Right.
Where there are a lot of marketing companies who are starting podcasts.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're kind of reverse engineered that, and
And you guys were out in front of that too.
we're very fortunate.
we were lucky.
We don't have a business plan. We sit there.
Ever.
We know that we have to think ahead. And I don't think that, if you're watching, I don't know that you need a business plan. to be
Pittsburgh
honest.
is.
I'm with you.
Pittsburgh
Unless
will
you're
give you-
going,
Right.
unless you're going
Opportunity.
for grant money and you're going,
That's exactly
you need,
right.
And we're not,
but,
Exactly right.
we're sitting here saying this is all organic. None of our customers have we displaced another marketing agency. They're all organic. We found them through somebody who told somebody. So we are kind of like, wow, what we've become has been organic, and we're very proud of that, and the fact that we are one of a kind. I don't know that anybody's emulated it, at least in Pittsburgh yet,
not in
where
this
they
market.
flipped their podcast into a business. So people say, wow, do you make money from your podcast? I guess in the sense we do, but it's not just because we're sitting around drinking drinks all day and then we show up and do the podcast.
I mean, we
once
do
a
that,
week,
but-
and we
Yeah,
eat.
she still gets paid.
It's because we're working.
That's why I'm trying to get into this.
It's because we're working all this over here. Then on Saturdays we go to our happy place, our sandbox, do the podcast.
Well, right. And we have 7 amazing people who work for us.
Right.
Like, that's the crazy part. Yeah. That's the part that you're only as good as the people who surround you.
Nick.
And yeah, right? You know that. And it might be the production person for the podcast. It might be the Colin who does a jack of all trades. We have content creators, we have writers, we have, all that kind of stuff. And that's
That
what
is
adds
amazing.
up. Yeah.
We're fortunate enough when, say, a Pittsburgh native comes in and he's the king in
Comedy or-
in a library.
Oh, the cultural trust.
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How could you forget it? I told you I forget everything. But a Western Pennsylvania guy was the king in Hamilton.
Oh, okay.
So
The
on
last
a
time,
Monday or a Tuesday is the only day you could go interview him. So we take our marketing hat off and go put our podcast hat on and go interview. Why wouldn't you interview him?
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
So while we're doing that, while we're playing podcaster, we're lucky enough that these 7 people hold our crap together, right? They're doing all
That's
the
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we're very, very fortunate that because of them, we're allowed to go out and play podcaster when we need to, when something is relevant.
Well, you guys do it very well.
Oh,
No,
thanks.
absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Absolutely you do. And that's something that I'd love to talk about moving forward, offline is how that's the part that we struggle with because we're brand new, right? Like I said, this is episode number 10 and we've actually, we're having a blast doing it, but we haven't, Nick and I it's Nick and I, right? Yeah. And we're bringing Jack into it slowly because he expressed an interest. Jack, like I said, I love him like a brother, and I love the dynamic of having a co-host and doing those things. You guys made that work, but it doesn't work with everybody.
Right.
You can't just do that. So we're at that very beginning place, you know, and so that's the kind of mentorship you need. Those types of things.
No question.
So Nick is second in to you, so that means Jack has to carry all of Nick's equipment in.
Good luck, Jack.
Right,
Exactly
that's
right.
Good luck.
Jack, for the next year, you're the probie.
I got to get lunch.
Absolutely.
I got to.
We had and here's the thing.
ridiculous.
I don't want to throw him under the bus because, like I said, I love him, but we had an issue with this sign.
So
right?
he's going to throw me under the bus.
This is brick and it's painted. So the first few episodes, we put those hooks on there. When we pulled them off, we pulled a good chunk of the paint off with it. So we have to repaint the place where we missed. So somebody at the table here, not me, came up with this brilliant idea that I know what we'll do. We'll drill a hole in there, and we will then put in these hooks, and boom, 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 it'll be permanent. We got his place guys to agree to it. So today's the big day, right? So he's here at like 10 after 7.
Yeah, we have Ya Jagoff coming in, and I don't bring a masonry bit or a hammer drill.
Not only he does not have a hammer drill, he does not have a masonry bit. So he's trying to drill, and he's pushing. And then on top of all of that, he
I run out of juice.
Didn't charge his drill.
So I run out of juice.
So we're using the hooks today, and these folks, the church has a maintenance director, and he came in and felt sorry for Jack and said, just go sit down. I'll take care of this. And so when we leave, he's going to
Understood. It looks fabulous.
This building was the original city building.
Yes, so
this
cool.
was police and fire department, and my dad was the fire chief here and dispatcher here.
Oh, wow, good
So I
idea.
grew up in this building. I mean, I literally grew up in this building.
I love
That's
it.
crazy.
And this building, one of the reasons it's so difficult, because if we're ever, anybody ever drops a nuclear bomb on Menneson, this building is the one that will still be standing.
Okay.
How about
And it's
that?
built like,
We'll make sure we're
We'll be
scheduled
here.
for your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, we'll try to get some. We'll try to get some advance warning so we can. Yeah, bring the beer. If you guys bring the beer, we'll.
Okay, I got one last one. It's Good Friday.
Nick, they're ignoring you.
I got one last one. It's Good Friday, and
Nick, when'd you get here?
I'm going for a fish sandwich in Pittsburgh today. Where am I going?
Oh, wow. Listen, it's been a rough
I'll take
season.
one place to meet you
It's
guys.
been a
I'm going for a
rough-
fish sandwich today. Where am I going?
I think I'm going to
You tell me where I'm going.
I can't believe I'm going to say that. Wahlburgers. That's the only thing I can say, because we have not had luck this year at some of our fish fries. I'm sorry. We just haven't. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't. So we have actually ended up at Wahlburgers twice now.
Really?
Yeah, they are our client, full disclosure.
That wasn't a setup, by the way. That was an honest question. It was not a
I just
setup.
wanted to be fair and say, they are our client.
It was not. I swear it wasn't a setup. I thought it was an interesting question.
I don't eat meat. I don't eat red meat, so I wouldn't know about burgers. So Wahlburgers, that's I don't plug them. But
John,
their
I'm going
fish
for a
is so
fish
good.
sandwich. Where am I going?
We haven't been there yet, but I think hopefully today. But the Oyster House in Market
That's where
Square.
we've been. They've been too
it's no better than
crowded.
that.
They've been too
epitome,
crowded.
right?
It's no
That's
better.
the epitome.
I worked for a previous engineering firm, and we were in Gateway 4 there. So
Okay.
I had more than my fair share of fish sandwiches.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean that's the only
What's
one.
the place over in the rocks that gives you in a pizza box?
Oh, Jabby Joe's.
Jabby Joe's.
You get
Jabby
Jabby
Joe's
Joe's sandwich
You get
in a
a
pizza.
fish sandwich.
Yeah, you
in a
liked it.
pizza
I didn't
box.
try it.
It's
yeah.
pretty good. Yeah.
But the churches, and I won't mention them, because you want to patron the churches, right?
Right.
And they just
volunteer
were.
fire company.
Yes.
And I agree with you. I have not, and I usually love that stuff. And that's
Same.
where I try to go. But yeah, I haven't had
Do you think the demand was in such great demand
I
that?
do. I think
Yeah, I
that's
think
something to
that's
do
what it
with it.
was. Yeah,
I
and it's
really-
okay. I just wish I could have given you a better answer. Not that Wahlburgers isn't a good answer.
And listen,
I didn't wear my
because
shirt.
It's number one. It's really cool that you don't eat red meat, and you pretty much represent a burger place.
Yes,
I mean,
but
'cause that's what they are, you're a burger
listen. It's not because I'm this healthy. It's because I never liked it. I hated my mother's meatloaf, and then I became an adult, and I was like, no more meat. No one's gonna make
I
me
hated
do it.
my
How
mother's
can
meatloaf.
Hated
any
it.
red-blooded American
Hate their mom's meatloaf.
Especially your mom's
Their mom's meatloaf.
Supposedly she makes the best meatballs ever, but I don't know.
I hated
would
my
assume.
mom's meatloaf
See?
too.
Really?
Because she put
That's
ketchup
why we
on it.
partnered.
Ketchup makes me gag.
Oh my God! Did you guys? I'm sorry. I know.
Wait.
That is so. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Listen.
If you keep opening up this can of worms,
What are you
Pittsburgh
doing?
guy that hates ketchup?
This is the best story ever. Listen. So We have a really good friend, Rachel Carlson, who used to be Rachel from Yelp, and she's now working for Grandpa Joe's. Okay. So Grandpa Joe's was a podcast 3 weeks ago. So we went on location to Grandpa Joe's, and they're such great people. And so we're sitting there, and Rachel says, guys, would you be fun and let us blindfold you? You know, and John's like, oh boy, Rachel's a control freak. She's not gonna like this. And we were like, sure, because we love Rachel. So we're like, sure. So she blindfolds us, and she says, you're going to taste test. The first thing, we put our hands out, and she gives us these bottles.
I hate you.
And we taste them, and I'm like, John, I don't, and I'm like nudging him. I'm like, I don't know what it is. And he goes, it tastes like lemon. And I was like, he must have had COVID, because it is not lemon. I said, it's berry. And Rachel's like, it's not berry. And she was like, think 57. As I had it in my mouth, I went, John, don't drink it, it's ketchup. He made this face that I will show you for your like online stuff. He was like this. Once he knew it was infused with ketchup. It was a soda pop with, he was gagging.
Did you have a childhood ketchup experience, or is
He
this
hates
just
it.
a taste palate? Is it a palate thing?
I've just never liked ketchup, and I can remember years ago in two things in my EMS career. I worked at Allegheny General, and I would cross from the Allegheny Center over to where I'd park over to the hospital. I would walk, and I'd smell the vinegar from the ketchup place. Make me gag. But in my paramedic days, I had a kid at Eaton Park fall and drop a big vat of glass ketchup on himself. So his hand was cut, and he needed to go to the hospital. But I had to tell my partner, please take care of this person, because I'm
gonna
about
throw
to
up
throw
all
up.
over him.
Not because he cut his hand open, but because
of
he
the
was head
ketchup?
to toe with ketchup, and I thought I was going to puke.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've never seen a face like that in my life. It was so funny.
It was
but
traumatic.
that's the kind of partner I am. I was saving his life. I was
Man,
like,
that
John.
was amazing. John,
I was like, don't do it.
Like,
And
then
Rachel was like, what happened?
Thank God you stumbled onto her. I mean, I'm serious, because you were just like a disaster without her.
Right, the ketchup, all the ketchup issues that could have happened.
So funny. Amazing.
Yeah, that was my favorite though.
Yeah.